What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Josh Helm here. We are on the road today, I'm headed out west. I'm on my way to a project, meet the power company. Today, I want to do a little talk with you guys, a video discussing Barndominium mistakes to avoid that can cost you thousands, perhaps. So we're just going to cover a few topics today. If you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do that now, where we'll constantly be giving you Barndominium content, whether it's tour videos, updates, or informational videos like this. That's what you can expect on this channel. We are primary Barndominium builders. That's our business. We've had the privilege of being able to do that for the last 5 or 6 years straight. Anyhow, we're going to get into some of these mistakes that happen, that can be made, and this really crosses over whether you're a DIYer or whether you are building with a builder with us. Mistakes can sometimes still happen. Number one, I'm going to say, is poor planning and maybe even site selection. Rushing into construction, guys. This is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make. You know, we have the privilege of having over 400,000 people on our group page on Facebook, and it is just stacked up on there where people are continuously having problems all over the country. And you know, some of these are typical construction problems, but we're going to really bring it home for you if we can. Rushing into construction, number one, without a well thought out plan, not considering like your zoning regulations or choosing a site that has proper drainage. Sometimes people are looking for a property, they'll buy something and not realize how difficult it's going to be for them to convert this over to a buildable site. You might have a lot of wooded trees on it. There might be a creek that runs right where you're thinking you were going to build a house. These are some things that could be really costly, because now water is the number one enemy to any home. So how we manage that, how we plan for that, that is a tremendous question that you should have on the beginning or the front end of any property. That's number one. Number two, a huge mistake, and look, I've kind of learned this the hard way even on my property. When we got ready to build a Barndominium, I acquired some local help in the area, some people who were already sort of in that vein who helped me along the way. But one of the huge mistakes that I made was foundation. On my build, yes, I made that mistake. I let someone talk me out of doing things that I would have probably done with more of a, I guess, preventative mindset or a overkill mindset. You know, somebody came in and said, hey, you don't really need a lot of extra foundation because all your weight is on the perimeter, so all you need is a perimeter beam and maybe a cross beam wherever you're going to have your load. And it made kind of sense to me at the time, but looking back, I wished I would have got a soil test, and I wished I would have done an engineered foundation, because a complete system for my slab in Texas. Texas is the worst for expansive clay soils. One of the things that, as we really set out to start building Barndominiums, especially homes in general, is that we didn't want to be looking over our shoulder. This is a mistake that I made my own self, thinking, oh, well, you know, I can save some money. Don't fall for the trap, guys. Do your research. Make sure you're doing everything for your home that is best. Foundation is not somewhere where you want to skip out on. I recommend that you do a soil test and do an engineered foundation. This is key. This is key to having good success building a Barndominium. Number three, a huge mistake that people make is inadequate insulation, and not the right kind of insulation in the right places. Do not skip out on this, especially when you have all steel involved. You want to use spray foam maybe when you're having direct steel on the interior to help prevent condensation. But when you do that, don't use open cell, use closed cell foam. This is key, and make sure you have 1.5 to 2 inches of it at least across your roof lines to help prevent condensation. In certain climates where humidity is even higher and your dew point is different, I would say increase the amount of inches that you need for closed cell foam. That is something that you don't want to have mold, you don't want to have problems like that inside your structure, because you're not in tune with what's going on in the environment or the area where you live. So if you're building a steel structure, make sure you're not having inadequate insulation. This is not a mistake that I made necessarily, but this is a huge mistake that people have widely across the country, because people are convincing them, hey, you can just put this building insulation in and you don't need insulation. I've talked with people and been to their property to look at their builds, and they're like, yeah, we didn't even do any other insulation other than that vinyl back insulation that comes with the metal building supplier. And I couldn't believe it. But that was their number one regret, that they did inadequate insulation. Number 4, if you're building a hybrid steel frame barndominium, a big mistake people make is either sizing for a metal building kit and going cheap on the structure itself. Also, improper building installation. So this is another big problem. Not knowing where to use what kind of materials and what to use together is a big problem. A lot of times people buy into the fact that they'll just throw a metal building kit together and then not really be thinking it through about their window flashing, door flashings, some of these critical things that are important for the longevity of your home. This is a home. Remember that when you're building a barndominium, it's a home. This is not just a barn. Barndominium is just a cute name for a home, okay? It's a home. Give it the respect, give it the value that you want it to be worth when you're building it. This is a big one. Improper installation of your structure. So you might be not taking a lot of things in consideration when it comes to your standard flashing methods. This is something that we do promote heavily on our channel when it comes to best practices. Don't skip out on this, because this could cost you thousands of dollars later when you have to open up a wall and reconfigure it and deal with it later. You have to remove your insulation, get rid of mold. It could be super costly. So keep that in mind when you're building a barndominium. This is a big mistake to avoid. Number 5, this one is maybe not as critical, but it can be if not dealt with. But understanding roof and drainage problems and roof pitch. When you're in certain climates, if you don't have enough roof pitch, then it's not going to drain away adequately. You're not going to have drain off move fast enough, and especially if you have snow and things like that, or snow will just build up there. Well, you want that to melt off as quickly as possible, number 1. I'm not going to pretend I know everything about snow, because we're definitely not in that environment. The main thing is, the steeper the pitch, the better runoff, the faster water moves off the roof, the less likelihood for leaks and problems. So you want it to move fast. You don't want to have low slope pitch like 112 for your house. I recommend a minimum of 3 to 412, something like that. That way you can make sure that water's moving off as soon as possible. Additionally, drainage can be a concern, or the lack of. So let's say you have a good enough roof pitch, but you don't have gutters or downspouts. One of the things that we've always done is we made it a standard to have gutters and downspouts. But sometimes in the modern society or contemporary designs, people are not interested in having gutters and downspouts. Well, the problem with that is the water is going to come rushedly off the roof, and it's going to cause erosion. So you got to know how you're going to deal with that around the slab, because it's going to create craters all around the foundation and will allow water to pool away. Drainage around your property is very important. You need to have positive drainage on all sides, and this is something that we try to take in consideration as well when we're doing the pad site. Not having proper drainage or routing underground where you're going to have the water diverted. Again, you don't want to build your home right where a creek might overflow, and this could cause a problem. Having a good pad site, dealing with drainage with the proper roof pitch, as well as diverting water away from the house. How are you going to manage it? So these are some things that could be very costly later. Also, I've seen where water can come off the back of a field and rise up and come into a structure. This is a big problem. I've seen all kinds of problems on our group page, but this can be a problem if you don't have proper drainage going around a build. Number 6 is overlooking plumbing and electrical design or layout, I guess. Over the years, early on, Barndominium plans were scarce. You weren't easily able to find a lot of designers. Now there's people who are draftsmen who are really doing Barndominium designs. There's so much out there on the internet. There's so much that you can find. We have over 50 plans as well on bestbarndoplans.com. What that means is, early on, this has been a big problem. People will literally try to build off of graph paper. The problem with that is not having proper dimension lines. So when you go to pour your foundation, you are getting your walls laid out, and bathrooms, toilets, all these kind of things. And this can even happen when you have a good set of plans, but say there's a miscommunication about how thick your exterior wall is going to be. Some of those dimensions can get thrown off, meaning your toilet can get thrown off from where a bathroom wall might be. I can't tell you how many times that can happen, but this can be costly because now you got to go back, either cut the foundation, move a wall, change your plan, especially if something like a major mistake happens with that. But that's why it's important to always check these things as best as possible before you pour concrete, because it's really easy to fix previous to that, and it can be very costly to go underneath the slab or to tunnel under the slab to fix it if you had to. But I'm not going to say that we haven't made those mistakes, because it's happened. Don't make these mistakes. Check your measurements. Make sure you have a good set of plans for plumbing as well as electrical. Your electrical, sometimes you need to get conduits ran, you need to get floor plugs ran. This need to be dimensioned on the plans themselves. All that stuff goes in the slab before you pour. This inevitably can be a big problem and can be terrible if you have to cut the concrete, depending on what your floor finishes are going to be. So these mistakes can happen. I can assure you they have happened for us. Don't let these things happen. This is something that we constantly are really sensitive about, because we want to make sure that everything is as best as possible before you get your concrete. Avoid these mistakes is what I'm trying to say. Number 7, ignoring building permits. Inevitably, when you're rushing your construction process and you're just trying to get going, sometimes people fail to understand the jurisdictions that they're in. In Texas, we have counties and cities mostly that we're dealing with, but in certain counties there's still like ETJs, where you have this extraterritorial jurisdiction, meaning that they have reign over certain areas which require additional permits and some checks to keep things in order. Now, for the most part, in most counties, it's not that difficult, but there's certain counties where they really put you through the ringer. So this is something that you need to know about. Don't avoid it, because later you could pay a penalty, you could pay a fee if you've got to now try to ask for forgiveness. The whole adage or rule that it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission is true. It is easier to ask for forgiveness, but it's more costly that way. Unless you got the big bucks and you don't care, then don't go that route. I don't recommend it. Number 8 is budgeting errors. People make a lot of mistakes with this because they don't count the cost. They underestimate the total cost of the project, meaning they don't have any contingency money and they have a lot of things that need to be done. This probably is definitely a big mistake in DIY. Now, if you're building with us, we do try to tell you, hey, these are the things that are not included up front, so you can make sure you have a budget for a road of access to the property, utilities for your underground, on electric, water, some of these things that are variables to cost. You want to make sure you've got a good budget for that. Maybe drilling a well. You know, these are items that go beyond construction. So you want to know all of the hidden costs that you're going to need, like appliances, maybe furniture, all of these things that really stack up when you're building. So don't under budget. Make sure you have everything accounted for. One thing that we do on our quote is we have a draw schedule that really gives an account for everything that's included in the cost. Make sure you have that if you're working with a builder, so you know the terms of payment and all that's included. Number 9, a big costly mistake that people make in DIY is attempting tasks that they're not skilled to do. This can be very costly because usually, inevitably, what happens is you will begin the task to do it yourself. You spend a lot of time and effort, and your time is valuable too. Don't forget that if you're a DIYer, like time away from work or from maybe a job that you are skilled at to do something else, now you're spending that time, means you're spending your money to do it. Then on top of that, you're going to pay somebody else to come in and finish it, which means you're going to pay a higher rate because now they're having to adapt to something that was previously done, and they have to sign their name to it to make sure that it's done properly. So this is a big costly mistake. Again, knowing up front the things that you need to know. What are your limitations? What is your skill set? Are you patient enough to go all the way to the end? This is a big costly one. I did not do that myself. I didn't really try to do a lot of DIY stuff. But I did do a few things, like my wife and I, we did a decorative wall in the shop facing the living quarters. We wanted to do something special there. I will say this, it was a tremendous amount of work and we spent a lot of time doing it. And by the time I was done, originally I was going to go all the way up to the peak. I got about to the top of the eave height and I said, nope, no more. We're going to change this design. So anyhow, these are just things that can happen, guys, when you're building and it's costing you your own labor. You know, at the end of the day, this is just a few of the items that you should look out for. You put your own number 10 in the comments below. I think that's a good idea. Go ahead, put number 10 this. We appreciate you guys following along. There's a lot more to come on this channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do that now. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Josh Helm, wishing you all the best. Thanks for watching, Texas Based.